You ready? Okay, so Ritchie, welcome to Belfast. Not for the first time, as we've just now figured out.
Right.
So, this is my first time seeing you.
Okay.
And just to get the fanboy bit out of the way, I have been listening to you since the Guitar Masters compilation back in like '91.
Oh yeah.
Shrapnel done like a compilation, and Dream of New Day was on it. So that's where I first got into you. So, question I have for you from that sort of time. So you obviously, your first album was pretty much a Shrapnel album.
Correct.
In the sort of whole. The second album was a bit more you.
Yeah.
Was there any sort of comeback from like Shrapnel going, oh hang on, this isn't a guitar album?
No, as a matter of fact, it was realized very quickly that I was not meant to be a guitar instrumentalist. I was not really cut from that stone, and so after the first record came out, it was well received at the time, considering what it was, and I kind of came in at the tail end of the whole movement of the kind of crazy, whatever you want to call that, kind of guitar playing. But you know, I was always a guy that wrote songs that had words to them, and so after that record came out, you know, Mike Varney, who was the president of the label and the producer of many of those albums, we had a conversation, and we realized that, I should be making records with singing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't totally clear to me that I was going to be the lead singer at 19 years old. So, and I did sing, but at the time when I came up, I was in a band with all great singers. So I was the weakest one in the band, so I didn't really sing very much, maybe one or two songs. I did harmonies. But so then I started sending Mike the songs for the second record with different singers, local guys. And he said, I really think if we're going to do this, you should be, the singer. I kind of envision you, this is him talking, as, like Peter Frampton, or he named some guys that were guitar players that sang. And so I said, well, great, let's try it. And so I always liked, Rod Stewart's voice and Paul Rogers from Bad Company. So I would listen to those guys and sort of kind of, find inspiration. And then we made the Fever Dream album. And then from there, I really followed that sort of thread. I mean, there was an instrumental record released after Fever Dream, but that nobody knows. That was a contractual obligation to make that record. What had happened was Interscope bought my contract after hearing Fever Dream. Right, and that's how I ended up on that soundtrack that you heard. But anyway, as part of the deal, I had to give another record, a third album, to Shrapnel to move on to Interscope. So we said, look, we can't make a vocal record because Interscope's going to get the vocal record. Let's just do another instrumental record. And that's how the Electric Joy album came out. But it was a big turning point for me, for sure.
I think Electric Joy as well, like, the elements of funk and stuff on that you maybe didn't have in that first album. I sort of thought it was getting a bit more towards what...
It was, definitely, by then I was already, taking my singing voice a lot more serious, even though that was an instrumental record. As a singer, it influenced how I wrote, the music for the record. Whereas the first record was made up of demo material that I had written and recorded as a teenager. I mean, it started when I was 17, when I started sending tapes to Guitar Player magazine to try to get in the spotlight column. So that first record, when you listen to it, I mean, it's kind of crazy, but it's the mind of a teenager. It really is, And then, I kind of flipped the script a little bit, when I started taking my voice a little more serious.
So I'm going to give you another guitar playing question, because it sort of follows on next. Where did the fusion thing come from? Because there's the Kotzen How project. I remember buying the Intergalactic Fusion Experience and going, what is this? Because I didn't listen to Fusion then. I was going, what is this? So where did that come from? Because you seem pretty comfortable playing that, and then Virtue obviously later on.
Well, my path for music was initially soul and R&B music, because that's the first thing I was exposed to. My first concert was Stevie Wonder in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, almost immediately after I saw George Benson. So those two were very big influences in the 70s when I was little. And then I discovered Kiss, so that led me into rock and roll. So then it was Kiss and Iron Maiden and AC/DC, right? Black Sabbath. And then once I started learning the guitar, and not to keep saying taking things seriously, but once I started taking the guitar more seriously, I then ventured into different kinds of guitar players like Alan Holdsworth, or Steve Morse from the Dixie Dregs. I remember learning Blood-Sucking Leeches from the Industry Standard album.
Yeah.
And so between Holdsworth and that, and maybe Return to Forever, and I had a Mahavishnu Orchestra record, and there were some Miles Davis records in the house. Giant Steps was in the, Coltrane was in the house. So, that's kind of where it all came from.
Yeah.
It's just a weird blend of soul, R&B,
Yeah.
and then hard rock. It's
Yeah.
very strange, but that's kind of my DNA.
Yeah, so once you got your first couple of solo albums, I've made a note of this, so I was listening to them all through again, and you've got those albums I touched on, but whenever you start to get into, we have emotions, something to say, but for me, whenever you hit What Is, all the sounds got so organic. Like that album there for me is one that I was like, this is different, this is like real. That's the one I sort of thought became more what you started to become, but everything was really organic in that, even the guitar sounds.
Yeah, you did. It is. I remember that, there's that album, and there's one called Break It All Down that I think came around the same time. And I'm not sure how, why, or any reasoning. I mean, that's just where it went, I remember I had a tape machine in my house back then. I had an MCI multi-track machine. And I used to record to tape. And I think one of the things is that, when you're doing that, you have to actually play, and you don't have all the same freedom with editing and doing this and doing that. So just by nature, I think things become a little more, as you described, being more, I think you said organic or something like that. Yeah, because, and back then I had 16 track heads on it. So it was 2-inch tape, but I only had 16 tracks. So, I had limitations as to what, I could have bounced things and done this or done that, but it was just the approach was different back then, so that's why those records sounded
really roomy sounding. It sounded like a microphone in front of an
very simple.
It sounded awesome.
Just one guy trying to pull it together.
Which is another thing, because you play so much in your albums, like drums, you're playing piano, you're playing all the stuff. So is it just a matter of workflow, or is it a matter of...
It's a workflow, and I have everything set up all the time, so I can kind of work in this roundabout kind of way where I jump behind the drums, and then go play the bass, and then a week later say, I don't like that one section, I can replay it.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I like bringing a guy in to play the drums. There's a lot that I can't do that I hear in my head that I just can't execute because I don't have the ability, the facility, the practice, and the chops. I'm pretty good at keeping time and playing certain style of drumming. I'm really confident in, but a lot of stuff I hear in my head I can't execute, so I call somebody to come play for me.
So you have a massive amount of work, like a massive amount of albums, a massive amount of songs. How do you stay so prolific? And what I mean by that is, and this is something from maybe my own experience, you write something and you immediately go, that sounds a bit like blah, 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 and you just immediately go, nah, and delete it. How do you stay away from like that? Say you write something you think, that's a bit like Stevie Wonder. Do you still pursue it? Do you still go,
nah.
Do you know what, I'll see how it finishes, or do you...
Nah. I don't get involved in it. The creative process, there's enough obstacles in what we do. I mean, there's all kinds of things in the way of getting this out of the speakers. The last thing I want to do is, create more nonsense for myself. So first of all, I don't listen to a lot of music. I really don't. I don't seek out music. I hear stuff all the time in my head, and
it just comes out.
Every now and then I act on it,
right?
And then it ends up being a song. And if it happens to have something in there that's reminiscent of something else, then so be it. I mean, look, if I write something and it's, that's Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones, obviously I'm not release it. But no, I don't really go that deep and analyze. What I usually do is like, is if I have a vision for something, my goal is to get whatever's happening in my head to come out of the speakers.
Yeah.
That's really it. It's no more complicated than that. And so after being around studios for so long, I know how to make that happen. Now what I don't know is a lot of the new stuff. Like there's a lot of sounds on some of the like pop records. Like I don't know how they're making them. Like, weird. It doesn't sound like something that I would know what it is.
Yeah.
And I like that. That's interesting. But maybe one day it'd be cool to work with someone that knows about all those secret sounds.
Cool.
Put that in my music.
So, you've all your solo stuff, you've got all these bands.
I don't have too many bands. Just one.
Smith Kotzen.
That's not bad. That's me and Adrian.
Yeah.
It's a duo.
Well, yeah, and
dynamic.
that's the guy that made me want to start playing guitar as well.
Yeah, he was a big influence on me too, I believe. And when I look at that album cover and I see his name there, I'm like, it's exciting.
But do you think that gives you a fresh perspective then in your solo stuff? Like being in a band and then coming back to your own stuff? Is it
No.
two brains?
No, it's a departure. I mean, look, the solo stuff is the mainstay because, you are you, I'm me, so I can't really get away from me.
Yeah.
I can, kind of. I do, but we won't go into all that. But for the purpose of my conversation, I'm just one person, I'm me, so that's it. So when I go and I write with Mike Portnoy and Billy for a Winery Dog thing, then I'm participating in something with two other people.
Yeah.
Or if Adrian comes over to my house and we pick up the guitars, and usually Adrian says, I've got this idea, and I say, oh, let's try this with it, and it usually starts rolling. That's a different mechanism than just me waking up at 3 in the morning with a song idea and running downstairs to the studio.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not very complex because it really is a different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So I have 3 questions left for you.
Okay.
So what's in the cards next? Is it
There are. I do have some cards on the table.
Okay.
And so I can't say right this second because we are planning something, but there are things happening.
Okay, cool.
But by the time people see this, there's going to be one thing that's going to be like, oh, that's what I was talking about. Cool.
All right, okay, interesting.
When are you putting this up?
1 hour's time, yeah.
1 hour? What?
1 hour's time.
Holy hell. All right, well, there's something coming down the pipeline that I think is very cool.
Okay, so I have 2 guitar questions, being a guitar player.
Okay.
So, what do you love about your playing now that you didn't have back then? Or is there anything from back then you still wish you had now?
Well, what I like now is I feel like I am very connected with what I'm doing under ideal circumstances. And when I say under ideal circumstances, my surroundings really dictate my performance. A lot of musicians, and we'll talk about guitar players, a lot of guitar players are very well rehearsed. So when you go see them play, they're going to play the same thing every night, and it's going to be fantastic. And when you see them for the first time, you're going to be very impressed. Mm-hmm. But if you come back a month later, you're going to see the exact same thing, done the exact same way. I'm not of that, cut from that stone.
Yeah.
Partially because of laziness, and partially because of boredom. I like the idea of being free and loose and being inspired, and there's a feeling that happens where I feel a connection, where I kind of, it's a beautiful feeling. I don't know how else to describe it. It's an amazing feeling in certain circumstances where I play that doesn't come out of knowing what you're going to play next, or practicing and writing out a solo, playing it the same way every night. And so I love that I've gotten to a point in my guitar playing journey where I started out very worried about the technique and the execution and the perfect lick and this and that, to the point where I have no idea what I'm going to play. Let's see what happens. And sometimes it's really a very, I guess you could use the word spiritual experience for me personally. And then other times, that didn't work out so well. We'll try it again on the next gig, see what happens, you know. But I love that element of playing music. And with the trio that I have, you know, really able to go there to those places. And I really got, educated when I played with Stanley Clarke. That was a big deal. And Lenny White and Karen Briggs and Rachel Z. And that was really great for me. But I also had that attitude even before that.
Yeah.
That was just like a confirmation of, okay, no, you're right. That's where you got to go with your playing. And that opened up doors for me mentally. But that's the element that I really love about, my relationship with the guitar and music. And I don't look to the past that much. So to sit here and say, it would be a little insincere, because I really don't.
I think you've got around a lot of the stuff you used to do anyway, because I've seen you nearly doing sweeping with your thumb and doing
Well, if you're talking about actual techniques from the past, there are some things that, I probably don't do, that I did when I was a teenager. And then there's things that I do now that I didn't do then. So, but you can do that on YouTube. You can see the difference.
Yeah.
I don't need to point that out to you.
Oh, I had the RH video back then.
Yep, there you go. That's what I was thinking about.
So last question, and probably the one that every guitar player watching this is going to want to know. Gear, I'm going to assume it's the Fender's fly rig. And I see a Marshall up there, no Victories.
You do. So the guitar has been the guitar for many years, right? So that guitar initially came to me in 1992 when I was recording the Poison album. Ibanez had made a new company called Starfield, and they made a bunch of Telecaster copy guitars, and Fender came to the studio and said, no. And so they came back the next day and they gave me two guitars, a Strat and a Tele. And the Tele was that Tobacco Sunburst, which later became my signature model. Yeah. So the one that I'm playing now is one that was built in Japan, pulled off of the rack, and then I sanded the finish off the neck, and I added this little device that's like a tuner
thing around the thing.
Right, but that's been my main guitar for about 12 years now. And it's just great. I love it. And you can buy that guitar to this day. You can go into, I don't know if they have, Sam Ash just closed. So wherever you go to buy guitars, you can go get the guitar. And then the Fly Rig is my pedal board that I developed with Tech 21. And that is very convenient for me. It works very well. And then, with the amplifiers, I've kind of, you'll go on YouTube and you'll see me playing with Fender amps. You'll see me with Marshalls. You'll see me with Korn from years ago when they were in business. I had a signature model. And then you've seen me, there's some Victory products out there on the road. But, the Marshall that I use is the 4-input, it's called the 1959, and it's the hand-wired one, HW. And it's a great amp for my style of playing. And it's really clean. When I say clean, I just mean there's a lot of headroom and percussiveness. It can hit you in the chest, and a lot of power there. And so I depend a lot on like using my volume knob to change the tone, clean it up. So with that amplifier, when you roll it down, it just sounds bright, clean, clear, and like a bell. And I really like that.
Cool. Fender also, noticed in the last month, have got the white and the red Strat available again for not just Japan.
When did that come out?
That was about 4 weeks ago I seen it. Because I always check the Fender website and go on the artist bit, just primarily actually to see if they had a guitar in stock, and then all of a sudden both of them were on the website.
Fantastic. We had a conversation at my house before the pandemic. We had all these plans, and we were going to do this and do that, and it was very exciting, and then obviously the pandemic came and everything changed. So I'm happy to see that now, finally, that the Strats are,
the white Strats,
I know the Telecasters, everywhere. But like with the last tour I did was with the Winery Dogs. We did 95 shows, and I had two Strats with me. I had a red one and the white one, and my Telecaster. So I use them all the time. Those are my two.
I'm glad to see that released, because I have looked for one of them for quite a while. The white one, can't find it anywhere. So
good, gotta get it.
Gotta get it. Tonight might cause that as well. But anyway, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate you giving me a bit of time before your your gig today, so thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Thank you. A pleasure. And then I can see this on the internet?
Yeah.